Hello, and welcome back to another episode of JV Sports Corner. In light of our fantasy season coming up, we've dedicated today's episode to giving you all the tips you need in order to win in your fantasy league. I'm John Valentini, and let's get things started. Now, before we really get into my tips and tricks here, I want everyone here to know that we're doing this from a perspective of a 12-man, one flex snake draft. Now, that is about the average for any league, so that's really where I want to take my stance here. So now let's get into it. I want to start by when you should pick certain positions. Now, I'm sure you've heard this from many different TikTok creators, all of that kind of thing, but I'm going to solidify it right now for you. You need to pick your running backs early. This is an extremely top-heavy running back class, and it leaves not much in the middle. So what I really want you to do is lock down that RB2 early. Now, from my perspective, in my main league, I have the 6th pick. That realistically leaves me Justin Jefferson, Jahmyr Gibbs, or CeeDee Lamb. Now, regardless of who I pick there, my second round should be absolutely laser-focused on grabbing Bucky Irving, Derrick Henry. If not, wait another round, Kenneth Walker. There is plenty of talent very early on, but if you wait past that third round to get your second running back or your first running back, I would even recommend going back-to-back there. If you wait till the 5th round, God forbid even the 6th round, you're stuck with Tony Pollard. You're stuck with DeAndre Swift as your running back 2. There's a lot of middleweight there in the mock drafts that I've done where it's very wide receiver heavy, especially in the 3rd and 4th round. So please, I implore you, take that running back early. Obviously, your first round pick is completely dependent upon what pick you have. I'm not saying if you have the 11th pick, go grab Saquon Barkley, because that's not physically possible. But I want you to schedule the rest of your draft around that first pick, but then get those running backs early. Another position I want to talk about is the quarterback. Now, there are a lot of sleeper picks this year. I feel like a lot of people are sleeping on Bo Nix, Jared Goff. But there's also a lot of people that are going a little bit early. Jayden Daniels is going a little bit early for my liking. He's still an amazing quarterback. He's still a top 5 fantasy quarterback. But for the round he's going in, I beg, please do not grab Jayden Daniels in the 3rd. Now, we all know how this goes. Someone is bound to grab Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen in the 3rd round, and it starts that QB train. Don't go for it. I want you to pick a quarterback in the 5th or 6th round. That could land you a solid guy. That could land you a Baker Mayfield. Let's remember the production that Baker Mayfield had last year. Let's not sleep on Baker Mayfield now. But not only that, I want you to pick your backup quarterback no less than 2 rounds afterwards. Because if you wait, you could get lucky. You could get lucky with Matt Stafford having a nice year, with Jared Goff having a nice year, Brock Purdy perchance. But it would be even better if you solidified that. Let's say you pick up Baker Mayfield. 2 rounds later, boom, you have your Justin Herbert. You have your Bo Nix. Your entire season is set. Now, in my opinion, the most important position to draft strategically is the tight end position. Especially years like last year, where those top guys didn't produce that well. I'm going to shoot out 3 names for you. Travis Kelce, Sam Laporta, and Mark Andrews. All top quarterbacks. Sorry, not quarterbacks, tight ends. However, all of them had extremely lackluster years. And to draft strategically so you don't end up with that early bust is extremely important. Me personally, I would go as far to say pick that tight end up rounds 4, rounds 5, possibly even round 3. If you really want George Kittle, you want Brock Bowers, you want to set the tone of your football team, that's where you go. And now for a backup tight end, we're lucky enough where it's a little bit bottom heavy in the sense where there's a lot of sleeper picks. I know all the jokes about Kyle Pitts, guys. But when you have him sitting there in the 11th round, and Michael Penix has said he's his #1 option, now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying to start him, but to have him there as that late background option, if you need him, even in the flex if you need him, I think he's very, very important to have. I could say the same for other people. Tucker Kraft is going around round 6, I believe, and I would 100% take him. In general, please do not wait too long for a tight end. Don't end up with that Braxton Strange. Don't end up with that Okonkwo. Please pick a tight end earlier. Now that we got that out of the way, I want to move over to comps. The best comps that you could possibly have in order to maximize the amount of points per team. Now, obviously, you don't want to go around and picking every single team because of bye weeks. We don't want to end up on week 5 with half the team gone. However, I have 2 specific comps that I would say are the most important to explore. If you are lucky enough to have that 1-1, please, well, first of all, pick up Ja'Marr Chase. That's obvious. Please pick up Joe Burrow. Please pick up Joe Burrow. That is the most obvious. Everybody is going to tell you that. Everybody is going to tell you. If you have Ja'Marr Chase, your quarterback needs to be Joe Burrow. Because, I mean, the Bengals wide receiver room is actually extremely strong. I mean, T. Higgins, Iavayas. There was somebody in the preseason that's been doing amazing. I'm blanking on his name a little bit. So production is still slim. But let's not forget that Ja'Marr Chase is a triple crown. Let's not forget who Ja'Marr Chase is. If you're picking him at the 1-1, you need to have Joe Burrow along with him. Now, along with that, let's say you're in the 2nd round and you pick up Derrick Henry. Now, I would say it's less powerful to have this. It's still an amazing comp to have, but I'm talking Burrow and Chase are up here, and a little bit below that is this comp I'm about to explore. I want you to pick up Zay Flowers as your flex. Please don't wait for him to be your wide receiver 2. If he's your wide receiver 2, there's something wrong with your draft. But to have him there at the flex is extremely important. Let's be honest, Lamar Jackson can do a lot. But the receiving room built around Lamar Jackson isn't the strongest. Zay Flowers himself is a wide receiver on maybe a third of NFL teams. After that, Rashad Bateman. I'm big on Rashad Bateman, don't get me wrong. He's solid. DeAndre Hopkins, he's solid. But when you have one of the best running backs in the league in Derrick Henry, you can match that up, especially when Mark Andrews isn't performing up to standard. You can match that with Zay Flowers, and you really maximize those points. Now remember, let's not get crazy and add Lamar Jackson into that equation. Please do not do that, because that ends up, what does that end up with you? 2nd round Derrick Henry, 3rd round Lamar Jackson, 5th round Zay Flowers. And now you got a bye week, and all your top guys are out. That's terrible. Now, one thing that everyone wants to hear every year, who are the sleepers? I have a multitude of them. We're going to start off with the rookies here. For our rookies, I have 3 names for you guys. I'm going to start off with Matthew Golden. Now, Matthew Golden, I believe, is going anywhere from the 8th to the 10th round. Matthew Golden has been solidified as the wide receiver 1, especially in light of Jayden Reed's injury in Green Bay. And I can assure you, Jordan Love throws his fair share of picks. Jordan Love is also a borderline top 10 quarterback in the NFL. I would guarantee you that if there's anybody to pick early on that's going to boom. Let's remember what Reed did last year early on in the season. He was that guy. Now imagine that with someone who has that talent out the gate. Please pick up Golden late. Keep him on the bench for a couple weeks if you don't believe me. But trust me, he will have that production that will guarantee a start by the end of the season. Another play I'd recommend more than anything, when I talked about how bottom heavy this tight end system is, I would go around to say you should do everything in your power to let your backup tight end be Colston Loveland. Now personally, I believe that out of college, Tyler Warren was the better option. However, Tyler Warren's stuck on the Colts, where their starting quarterback is former Vikings backup and former Giants 4th string at one point, Daniel Jones. It's a total meltdown over there. Sure, he could be their number one option, but at what cost? On the flip side, Colston Loveland now has Ben Johnson helping him out there. He is an amazing coordinator, I'd say. And he has everything up here to give Colston Loveland the top production that he needs under Caleb Williams to maximize his production in not only the field, but in fantasy points as well. Now, finally, one more guy I want to talk to you about, Cam Skattebo. Now, this is very specific here. Personally, even as a Giants fan, I believe that what Tyrone Tracy Jr. did solidifies him as the RB1. However, I can see a Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery relationship where Tyrone Tracy gets those yards. He gets you that runs. But what happens when you're 3rd and 2 in the red zone? You put in Cam Skattebo. He bulldozes through those defenders and gives you those touchdown points. Now, this one is a little bit more of a gamble. Obviously, touchdowns are not guaranteed. But what I can guarantee you is that that's what the coaches are going to be looking for there. They're going to put them in when they just need a couple yards, which normally will not be that okay. But when it's in the red zone, they will be putting Skattebo in, and he will be seeing that touchdown. Aside from rookies, we have some really late sleeper rounds. I'm talking 9th or later. And I have 4 names for you here. Let's start with Rashad Bateman. I vaguely mentioned him earlier. I believe he should be the wide receiver 2 in Baltimore. I know DeAndre Hopkins is there. DeAndre Hopkins is old. This isn't Texans DeAndre Hopkins anymore. Who are we kidding? Rashad Bateman is at a consistent level of production that is not represented by his pick whatsoever. Rashad Bateman is, to say the least, an absolute dog on the field at the 2 slot. And with a quarterback such as Lamar Jackson, even with Zay Flowers, even with Derrick Henry, even with Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman is still showing himself to get that yardage, to get past those defenders, especially since he's taking away coverage, since Zay Flowers is taking away coverage from him. He is an extreme sleeper pick. You got some guys who are injured, throw Rashad Bateman in. He'll get you that 10, 12, maybe even 13 or 14 points that are necessary at that flex spot. The next name I want to throw around is Tyjae Spears, quote-unquote backup running back for the Titans. However, through training camp in the preseason, he has shown to take a primary amount of snaps. I want you to keep that in mind. They have Tony Pollard, former Cowboys amazing, former Cowboys star. However, his production has slowly decreased as he's gone to the Titans, as the Titans in general have decreased in skill. However, Tyjae Spears has taken that backseat and now has taken that time to increase his skill cap and is now in an almost starting position. I would take Tyjae Spears. I would take that gamble that he would be that starter by the end of the year. Let's remember, they have Cam Ward now. They have a guy who isn't just going to sit there and get sacked and look pretty. They have Cam Ward over there. They have solid wide receiver options. I was actually going to sit here and tell you to draft Calvin Ridley before I found out he was being drafted in the 5th or 6th round. He is not that kind of talent. Please don't draft him then. Take Tyjae Spears late, and I promise you he will get you those amount of points on the bench. One more name for you here, Darnell Mooney. I have absolutely no idea how he ended up this low. Darnell Mooney is the 2nd wide receiver option for a Michael Penix-led Falcons team that is an absolute powerhouse. Darnell Mooney put up consistently, I believe, 14 points per game on average. How in the world is he at 9th or lower? Please take him. Take advantage of how low he is. Take advantage of how the people in fantasy made this draft lineup and decided that he was a 9th round talent. I know there's Drake London. I know there's Kyle Pitts. I am well aware of Bijan Robinson. But Darnell Mooney is still that guy. And after that's what? Ray McLeod III. They need Darnell Mooney, and he will be consistent with that production. Now, finally, I'm going to throw out one more tight end for you here. I know, I've said enough, but there's one more guy that I want you to consider if you didn't take my advice on the tight ends. If you really decided to not get that backup in the 9th round or later, there's still one more guy you can get, and that's Dallas Goedert. He suffered from a couple of injuries early last year. It really hindered him a lot, to say the least. But this year, he's perfectly healthy. Let's remember what team he's on. He's on the Philadelphia Eagles, led by Jalen Hurts. He can consistently block. He can consistently get yards. He was a top 10 option top 5 option 2 years ago, top 10 option last year. Now he's all the way down in the 10th round. You need to take advantage of that. If you don't take my advice here, at least take my advice on that. If you decide, I don't want to listen to this guy, who does he think he is? I'm not going to take a tight end. I'm going to wait. And you decide to do that, which is a bad idea. But if you do, at least pick up Dallas Goedert. Now, I do have one specific player that I want to talk about as a whole here. I personally am not the biggest fan of drafting rookies that early. Now, normally, it backfires for me. I'm going to be honest. I wasn't that big on Puka Nacua. He ended up being a star. I wasn't that big on drafting Malik Nabers that early. I knew he was going to be amazing, but I'm always not so confident on it. And this year, I could say the same about Ashton Jeanty. I know he's going to be great. But still, right here, I have that gut feeling that what if he's not? He's not solidified yet. He was at Boise State. He was playing the Nevada Wolfpack. That doesn't compare to what? The Philadelphia Eagles defense? I'm a little bit worried. However, who I'm not worried about is Omarion Hampton out of UNC. Omarion Hampton has stepped up with a solidified former RB1 in Najee Harris, who I can talk for about maybe 30 minutes about how much I dislike him. So I'm really glad to see Omarion Hampton take that step up. But they took the risk on him. They had J.K. Dobbins. They picked up Najee Harris. And they still chose to take Omarion Hampton that first round. They still chose to show him the primary amount of snaps while Najee Harris is injured. And now I've seen him in the preseason, and I can confidently say that you need to take him. That man will be doing wonders in a Jim Harbaugh-led, honestly, a playoff run contender, a dark horse playoff run contender, Chargers team as a whole. I know Justin Herbert has the allegations of being that hypothetical man. Can he really do it? He's never really met those expectations that's always set for him. However, you have Ladd McConkey. They just picked back up their one guy, Keenan Allen. You know how passionate Keenan Allen was about being a Charger? When he was left for the Bears, in an interview, public interview, he went on PR, and he said, I miss being a Charger. He said it more subtly, and I miss the blue. But as a whole, you have a passionate Chargers team. And to have that ball being run by Omarion Hampton will get so much production for you. Trust me, I know it's early. I know he's a rookie. But please take Omarion Hampton. Now, that's about all I have for you. However, if you're sitting here and thinking, again, who does this guy think he is? Does he even have any championships? Let me tell you something. Not only was I the runner-up last year due to some injuries, I think the best way to reflect how good someone's draft is if it's physically attainable to have this year. And I can tell you something. My team from last year is impossible to draft this year based on how early every single player on my team is. Jaden Daniels was my backup quarterback. My starting quarterback was actually Anthony Richardson, which says a little something about my decision making. But Jaden Daniels as my backup was the biggest step forward from that. Let me tell you another thing. I had Amon-Ra St. Brown. I had Jahmyr Gibbs. I had Devon Achane. My flex was Nico Collins. All 4 of those guys are taken within the first 3 rounds. Not even. First 2 rounds. I would have to go to ridiculous lengths to get even 2 of them on my team, if I'm lucky. And that's the kind of playmaking, that's the kind of decision-making that I carry every year with me in fantasy. The year before that, I was making the same decisions. Kyren Williams. All of that. That is why you should listen. That's why I'm going into this year with the same confidence that I'm bringing to you guys today. And I implore you to listen. I implore you to take my advice here. Watch this back as many times as you need. Take some notes, guys. Please listen. However, that is all I have for you guys today. I know this episode was a little bit different. We'll be back to our usual schedule next week. I'm John Valentini, and this is JV Sports Corner.